Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Rob's Hot Mic, movie news, views, and reviews. Today, we are going to be talking about Akira Kurosawa's The Hidden Fortress. But first, got a couple of noteworthy items, so let's get to it. First of all, the second season of Ted Lasso is coming out tomorrow, and I am so excited. I'm not on that early review list. I'm watching it with everybody else, and I can't wait. But here's the bind. Snake Eyes is also coming out tomorrow, and this may be the first time I actually go to a theater. I know they opened up here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada last week. And I was kind of jazzed on going, and then I looked at everything that was available. And I'm like, seen it. It came out 6 months ago. I don't want to go. Stay at home. Which is a perfect time to kind of hook into what we're going to talk about. One of the things I wanted to talk about before we got to the main attraction, which is a thing from A.O. Scott, a big name, big snooty, big name movie reviewer, got his start at the New York Review of Books, because we all have to start somewhere, and some people start 90% of the way up the ladder. Anyway, he is a New York Times film critic, is a great film critic for all my class whining. He's a fantastic film critic. That said, I think it is important to kind of acknowledge where he's coming from, and you'll see why when we get into the heart of this piece. The movies are back, but what are movies now? And I will put a link to this piece in the first pinned comment. It's a kind of, what's going on with cinema? I was so happy to get back to the movies. That kind of, let's call it what it is, bullshit. Anyway, he's it's kind of ridiculous, but I think where it really comes, the heart of it is has film changed forever? Has film changed for the worse? What has the pandemic done to it? Was it that great before? And I want to get to the heart of my beef of this piece is what's so special about movies. And I think it's right here. He refers to himself as old enough to remember when most movies were hard and in many cases impossible to see. You really wanted to, be a well-rounded, or how can I put this, folks, a cinephile. You weren't in a very big city with a big art house scene. You were kind of hooped. You had to really work hard. You had to subscribe to a lot of magazines, et cetera, et cetera. And now with home video, which is a revolution that's been going on since the 80s, and even you could argue the late 70s. I think that's when my mother bought a Betamax with a wired, like an actual wired remote. That has fundamentally changed. Personally, I think way for the better. And my concern here is, and he says, he goes, that in itself, the accessibility of film, that in itself might be a problem. When everything is accessible, and he acknowledges it's not everything, and not equally accessible to everyone, then nothing is, when everything is accessible, then nothing is special. And I think that really, I gotta push back on that. Why should it be hard? It's so much gatekeeping, saying, well, I'm the true film fan because I had to work to see these films. What? And us schmucks who can just, it's like, it's pretty easy, actually. I bought a Criterion collection, and that's how I was able to see the movie we're talking about today, which was only referred to and only those super insiders would know about beforehand. Now anyone can, and what's Honestly, what the is wrong with that? Anyway, I think this is part and parcel of the more recent debate, which, and I think Wisecrack really nailed it when he's talking about, if you look at, here, let's see if we can't zoom in on this wonderful thumbnail. You should be able to see it right there. Did Marvel kill cinema? And that whole, I got to call it whining about Martin Scorsese's whining about how Marvel and what I would call pretty standard working class cinema fare. He's talking about that's not cinema, and what he makes is cinema. Him and his friends make is cinema. And Wisecrack in this Did Marvel Kill Cinema did a great piece, a great historical analysis on, how this is the same debate that went on, between the legitimate theater and what these peasants were watching in vaudeville and film, which was not considered a legitimate art form because peasants were watching it. And they go even further back to, Shakespeare. The Peanut Gallery was the main floor of a Shakespearean theater, Shakespeare era theater, where you could get in for next to nothing. You're eating peanuts, dropping it on the floor, and yelling at the players. And they played to that crowd as much as they played to, the more affluent who were up in higher levels in the balconies. And how that was an illegitimate form of entertainment, again, because peasants liked it. And so I think there's a real class bias when A.O. Scott and Scorsese talk about this stuff, is they're really kind of showing their class colors. It's if anyone can watch it, how is it special anymore? And I'm just thinking that's all just BS. So that's one part of this. Another thing is that worry about the state of cinema, and this kind of comes in more into the internet scene, let's say my scene, my little tiny little corner of it. And first we're going to talk about John Campia. Guy runs the John Campia show, a thing I love to watch and both love to agree with when I do and hate to agree with when I don't. That is, here, let's give you a taste of where he's coming. This is the John Campia show. I do recommend it. There will be a link to all these links I'm referring to. But he went on what I'm going to call a bit of a ridiculous rant. Well, maybe not a rant, a ridiculous piece, actually. It's called "What's the Cause of Black Widow's Big Second Weekend Drop-Off?" And it really was a kind of this going on about how streaming was the big bad of it all. There's plugging a film, but basically he's going on this rant about how maybe the both streaming and the streaming a movie at the same time in its theaters is killing cinema, and it doesn't financially work, or maybe it doesn't financially work. And there's a part of me, and I've talked about this with some of my other friends within the film analysis scene at my tier level, microscopic tier level. And, guys, I got to admit, I want to call BS on all of this. In part, yes, the pandemic threw a lot of things for a loop, including film attendance, like in the theaters film attendance. But I got to admit, if I was a wagering man, I'd really say all we're going to see in 5 years, when everyone looks back on this, they're going to go, yeah, the pandemic accelerated changes that were already happening. As we get more and more choices, the pandemic did not create streaming services. The pandemic did not create 50, 60, 75-inch 4K televisions, and at a price, well, maybe not anyone can afford, but almost anyone can afford. I call myself poor, and I have a 49-inch 4K, blah, blah, blah. It becomes something where you're like, what are you talking about? Everything was already there. We were already moving in this direction. Heck, Spielberg and Lucas years ago were saying, you know what? Big movies, they're going to cost you $50 to go to. They're going to be an expensive, fancy thing you don't do as often as you may have gone to films 20, 30 years ago. And that's been going on, like I said, since the late 70s, the 80s. Already 20 years ago, we already had in our language, oh, that's a renter. You wait for the movie to come out in the video store and you go rent it. You're not going to go to see it in the theater. With streaming services, that already gives you another, I'll wait till that's on the streaming service, or maybe I'll pay it as a renter when it comes out in that first window or whatever. And so, but the other thing I want to talk about here, and what Campia and Rob Burnett, both guys I really do enjoy watching, and I like some of their takes, but I think they're way off base here, is it's like the pandemic ain't fucking over. What are you talking about? What caused what now? All you know is we're still in a crisis. To talk about what caused, the best you can say is Black Widow was well reviewed, wasn't considered amazing. Jim and I enjoyed it, but we weren't raving about it either. It had its strengths and its weaknesses. It was a well-reviewed film, so it did well considering the current context where not all theaters are open. We're still reeling. Heck, Las Vegas just had to go back to the mask mandate. LA County has got a mask mandate. Some of these places, especially in low vaccination states, may end up going back into some sort of lockdown. So to talk about any structural reasons of why X or Y film did what it did seems to be pointless. You got to wait a couple of years. Let's see how consumer behavior has really changed. And even myself, when I went, I'm not going to go see a movie last week because of X, Y, and Z, is that COVID or is that just my normal behavior? Who knows? Let's see if I'm going to movies as regularly as I used to in a year. Then you'll be able to say, oh yeah, consumer behavior really has changed. You'll see it in the math. And that leads me to, honest to God, folks, the last person I am going to refer to, and that is this guy. The only reasonable person on the interwebs right now, as far as I'm concerned. Here, let's give him the whole screen. This is Dan Morrell. And Charts with Dan is a show I watch regularly. If you're interested in film math, this is the film numbers, film box office and that. I'd say this is the guy to follow. He owns his own mistakes, including himself a couple of weeks ago getting into the, hey, what is F9's box office? Tell us about what's really going on in film. And he does in this one. And again, there'll be a link to the description. He's really, look at his hands. It's like, be reasonable, folks. Let's look at it in context. And it's interesting. If you look at his math, what is he really seeing in his own math? It's like, it's looking like a movie summer, just with the numbers a lot lower. But it's similar to 2018, similar to 2019 as far as the rise and fall, the bumps in the road. But he is also the first one to say, keep in mind, we're in this thing. To even speculate on any specific film, I would. The only thing I'd add is we've got to lean into what we already know. If it's a good film, it'll probably do okay. You know, sometimes a great film can suck wind in theaters. In the Heights is getting just fantastic reviews and disappeared, whereas lesser films, F9, still do well. I think there's a class aspect to that. But yeah, you know what? Know what you know. If it's a good film, you're going to talk about it with friends. You're going to say, yeah, I enjoyed that. Worth your time. And otherwise, relax. We really got to wait a while to see what the new normal, the post-COVID normal means for this industry and for the rest of our lives. So anyway, now, I think that's about it, but I thought I might as well take this opportunity to, let's do it. Shamelessly beg for a like. Subscribe if you haven't already. And last, of course, but not least, ring that bell. What else? What do we got coming up? Oh, yeah. Well, you kind of saw it already on Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies this Sunday. That'd be this Sunday, June 20. Bear with me. Pull up my calendar again. Yes. June 25th. At 9:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time, Jim and I will be overanalyzing. We're really asking the question, does National Lampoon's Vacation hold up? I think, is that about it? Anything else? I begged for credits. Talked about what we're doing shortly. Folks, I think we're done now. I think that's about it. Thank you so much for checking out my video. And I think it's time to let's just roll the credits. Okay, bye-bye.